I'm Donald Moffat.
And I'm Heather Menzies. Logan's Run will not be on tonight.
But stay tuned for the Charlie Brown special and the Fat Albert Halloween special.
And we'll be back next Monday night.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. Become a patron today. Patreon.com/wordballoon. For as little as $3 a month, you can really help Word Balloon keep going and get exclusive content you won't find anywhere else. Here's what you get. The Word Balloon Magazine, a digital publication packed with behind-the-scenes interviews, commentary, and insights from your favorite comic book creators, writers, and pop culture stars. And you can join the Word Balloon Book Club. Join Brian Bendis and me for a live monthly discussion of a hand-picked graphic novel. It's a great way to dig deeper into storytelling, art, and comic book history. Word Balloon has been a home for creator conversations since 2005. Your support helps cover production costs and keeps these interviews going strong. So if you love comics, creators, and long-form conversations, become a patron today. Be one of the League of Word Balloon listeners. Patreon.com/wordballoon.
Connecticut's #1 Comic Con is back! Apple Hagon Meet actors from TV, movies, anime, comic book creators too! Shop for comics, toys, and more! Dress up as a hero! August 8th through the 10th at Mohegan Sun. Tickets on sale now at terrificcon.com.
Kingdom Come is 4 separate issues, 48 pages apiece. It was an all-immersive kind of lifestyle for me.
It blew people away. I mean, this was the most sought-after book there was.
This was something very new, very different.
No one had seen anything like that at that scale before.
It was amazing.
I never thought from anything that people would still be talking about this book 25 years later.
Welcome back, everybody. Time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Siuntres here. Really happy to welcome Dan Jurgens back to Word Balloon. Good to see you, Dan.
Good to see you, John. It's nice to be back.
Well, we got a lot to talk about, Dan. You've been very busy and continue to be. In fact, we just played a Terrificon commercial, and I will see you there in a couple of weeks at Mohegan Sun in Connecticut.
Yeah, looking forward to it. It is absolutely one of my, 2 or 3 favorite cons that are going right now. And if none of you have had a chance to be there, make this the year. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, nice lineup, both from a celebrity standpoint and a comic creator standpoint. Not that you guys aren't celebrities. We all know that. So, hey, we got to talk about many things. I will start, though, because last Wednesday, your Treasury Edition Superman came out. A fantastic story. Giant and beautiful art and a fantastic story. Dan, it felt like a movie. I'm not kidding.
Thank you. In part, that was one of the goals. And once you have that extra large page size and that format, we wanted it to be very, very visual. And by we, I mean Bruno Redondo, who did 95% of the art, and DC and me. We wanted something visual. We wanted something to go along with the movie in a way. And it kind of goes back to, and you may remember this, when the first Superman came out, DC did a tabloid edition, mostly reprint material, but it had Christopher Reeve on the cover pointing up, a photo cover. And we got to talking about that and just said, wouldn't it be fun if we could do something like that again? So one of these does have, one of the variants is also the movie cover for the current movie. So it harkens back to 1978 that way.
That's great, Dan. Hold up if you don't mind, because I know you got the Treasury Edition by you there.
Yep. This is the normal cover, and this is a big comic, folks. I mean, this is what Treasury Editions are designed to be, with gorgeous Bruno Redondo art inside. 84 pages in all, and we also have nice feature on the movie inside the book itself. So this was a lot of fun to work on, and I think, pretty sure DC's first new Treasury edition in 25 years. And the last one was, I believe, and I think this is right, Superman Fantastic Four, which I also did. So
yes, Dan, absolutely.
We're gonna do one of these every 25 years for the next 200 years.
Dan, I'm recording a conversation with Alex Ross tomorrow.
Okay.
Because didn't he write it, or did Paul Dini write it?
No. No, Alex actually painted. So we did the Superman Fantastic Four cover. I drew it, and Alex painted over the pencils.
Okay. All right. Very good. I knew he was involved.
It reminded me of their Alex's treasury-sized to the Superman Batman series that he did. Okay, so then
he did those four. He did Captain Marvel, Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman.
And I think those came after mine, so it hasn't been quite 25 years.
Yeah, whatever. That's all right. He won if you're scoring at home, but that's okay. Hey,
Alex will have to correct me at some point. I look forward to seeing him when he does.
Dan, it is your call, because on Thursday, Art and Franco, the Tiny Titans guy, and myself, and Mitch from Terrificon, and our buddies Scoot McMahon, the artist, and our buddy Wayne from Canada, we're all going to be on and do a spoilerific talk about Superman. It is your call if you want us to talk about spoilers tonight.
Well, no, this should be a spoiler-free show, don't you think?
You got it, Dan.
Yeah.
No problem.
I still know too many people myself who haven't seen it yet. Amazing.
Dan, you're kidding. Well, you were at the premiere, though, Dan. Didn't you see it then?
Yes, I did. No,
right.
I have seen it, but I know people who haven't.
I see.
And I never want to be that guy. And I think we can talk about certainly how much fun it is.
Yeah.
And, and everything that it has accomplished, which is a lot. But yeah, we'll lay off some of the secrets. Like
I said, Dan, no. And I absolutely respect that. Dan, you know how the internet is. My God. I mean, really. And that's fine. And I understand. And I mean, I gave a spoiler-free review last Thursday because I saw it Thursday afternoon. And obviously, folks, if you want to make your comments, good or bad, that's okay. I mean, I know there are people that weren't as crazy about the movie as Dan and I were, but that's okay. I mean, so we're happy to take it, but just keep it spoiler-free. Whatever's in the trailers, I would say, is fair game. Because I did want to acknowledge as well the Justice Gang, things like that. But yeah, so I mean, I didn't mean to presume to talk for you, Dan, but I love the movie. I gave it 5 out of 5. The little quibbles I had are so inconsequential. Who cares, Well,
and I think there are so many different ways to look at it, and a lot of it is look at it in terms of, I think, the movie itself, and I think we can also look at it in terms of as the cornerstone for what is to come. How does it go in terms of accomplishing its mission that way? So I think when you stir it all together, that's where you can really say it's been a success.
I agree. And that was a tall order for Gunn. I heard someone say, and again, this is without spoiling details, that maybe there's a director's cut that is longer. Because I will say very briefly, I would have liked to have seen more of the Daily Planet in the movie. Mm-hmm. And I don't know.
I don't know that. I would assume that there may well be, but I don't know that. And so, I wouldn't want to hit on that. I can certainly see where even if there isn't a specific director's cut necessarily, there's going to be a large audience for those of us who want to see more. We know there's stuff that winds up on the cutting room floor, and some of it, whenever these things do come out, we say, "Oh wow, we wish that would have been in the feature itself." So I look forward to seeing whatever hidden material may exist.
Wow! First comment, Dan, from Synchro Shadow Advanced says, "I finally get to see Dan Jurgens on Word Balloon Live. I love a lot of your work, friends, and have said that you are the Swiss Army knife of DC. They can give you anything, and you'll do great work." Yeah, Dan, you got a wide resume of the DC and Marvel universes, for that matter.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that comment, and I think one of the fun things is to work on a variety of different projects. And everybody will say, yeah, he's the guy who does Superman and things like that. But it is also fun to hit on different characters, different ideas, and different concepts, by all means.
100%, Dan. Thor, Captain America at Marvel immediately come to mind. I know I'm leaving things out. Here's another Word Balloon supporter, Pete Beiser, who says, I'd watch a Daily Planet TV series with this cast. Dan, that is another, because this agenda that James Gunn has laid out and everything, and I know we're getting the Supergirl movie next year, and maybe there will be some Metropolis stuff, even though we know it's based on Tom King's story, which is a more intergalactic story.
Right.
But everything that was introduced as far as the Daily Planet and even the Justice Gang, I've been thinking about it for the last couple of days, and it's like, man, it might be 3 or 4 years before we see the Justice Gang again. And that is I think, unless he farms these out to other filmmakers. And also, I don't want to see a rush to expose this DC universe, but by the same token, it's like, God, it was great seeing, Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl and Mr. Terrific. I'd like to see more of them.
Yeah, I would too. I think one of the things that started working right away in terms of the film is the casting was sensational across the board. And it really was. And the actors who played the various roles did a good job, I think, of accentuating the differences among the characters. And I think that really came through. And it was exceptionally well cast. And so even if it was Miss Tessmacher or Jimmy Olsen, sometimes you watch a film and like the casting works on the first 2 or 3 roles, and then after that it sort of tapers off. And this one was strong top to bottom. It was absolutely fun that way.
And it's self-evident that James Gunn is a massive fan of comic books. And again, I'll keep it spoiler-free, but the amount of screen time Jimmy gets is excellent. And I'm so glad Jimmy has something to do other than say, Jeepers, Mr. Kent.
Not only that, but, how can I phrase this best? You remember the days when Jimmy was called Mr. Action, right? So at one point I was just waiting for a certain character in the film to say, what are we going to do Saturday, Mr. Action? Me
too, man. I hear you. It was great. Absolutely. Yeah, I always tell Kupperberg, because he was writing for Superman Family back then. That was, again, and I started in the early 15-cent era, I think, with comics. And I loved, Fourth World and all the Kirby stuff. But no, Jimmy's a blast. And I really loved what Fraction and Lieber did with their miniseries recently and everything.
Yeah. No, Jimmy was a lot of fun in this film. And again, everybody was. Absolutely.
Stray Beans. Dan is the man. Best Superman creator of the last 30 years. How about that, man?
Thank you.
And S. Cham Rosick. I believe that's how we say that. Treasury book on Thursday, movie on Sunday. Good weekend of Superman content. Really, I got to say, on the comic side, DC is living up to this summer of Superman. You did a great job with the Treasury edition. I think Slott is off to a great start with his Superman series. Williamson continues to kill it. And we're getting Superboy from Wade in action.
Yeah, one of the points I had made on Twitter a couple of days ago is it's been a long, long time. And seriously, maybe since like 1992, since I've seen Superman be so much a part of both the industry discussion as far as readers go, professionals and things like that, as well as the general public. It's been really fun to see. And, we've had, in that time, other movies have come out and TV series have come out and things like that. But I don't know that we necessarily had times when the comics and the movies and everything were as sync as they have been recently.
Since James has taken over the studio, does he have input when you guys get together and talk about what you want to do in the comics?
Not as far as I know. I haven't been exposed to any of that, and I don't believe it became an active discussion on the Treasury edition. there may have been some approval along the line that I'm unaware of. I know this is something we really started talking about last summer, and took us that long to pull it together. And as it was, I mean, we were working on this thing practically as they were printing it. So to the best of my knowledge, no, that's not necessarily the case.
Okay, fair enough. Just a good excuse to throw up the cover again and remind everybody. And I'm sure it's still out there, your comic stores, everybody. It is such a great story, Dan. Truly, I can't say it enough. And also, you've been such an important part beyond these last 30 years. It's a little bit more than that since you've been writing the character. Plus, hell, you from an art standpoint, you go back to the Byrne era as well. Yeah, I do. I mean, I sort of stepped in when John left. There was obviously a void, and they started to reshuffle the books, and different people started coming in at that point, and I was one of them. So it kind of does go back to that general time frame. I think 87, 88, somewhere in there. So yeah. It's been a good long run. And so many changes, and you've had to coordinate some of those changes. And I was looking today, in fact, and reaching back post New 50, well, kind of during New 52, you certainly came in and took over for George Perez and everything, and then in terms of the writing. Yes. Can I ask, and I think it's been enough time, I feel comfortable asking you, the changes that were made to Superman for the New 52, and you've been, like I said, through several continuity changes with Superman over the years. Regardless, you could still write Superman. I mean, whether but honestly, just your feelings about that iteration of Superman. So the best way to explain that perhaps is this. And when they called me up and asked me if I wanted to do the book, the first thing I said is it okay if I give George a call and find out what went wrong? And he said, sure. So I called George, and we talked about it a little bit, and he said, don't do it. He said, they're not going to let you do the Superman you want to do. And because that was his viewpoint for himself at the time. And I said, yeah, I probably should say no, which I did. And then Keith Giffen called me up and said, oh, come on, I'll help. We'll do it together. And pretty soon Keith is so much fun to work with that I said, okay, I'm in. But really, I just think that in that moment, one of the problems you get to is this. We had seen a world where Superman and Lois were married. All of a sudden, you go to the New 52, and they don't have even a relationship. And so in the minds of a lot of people, when these things exist and you start to wipe them away, they lose the context for the characters and how do they relate and who's this, who's that. Grant didn't have that problem on what he was doing because he set the book in the past. Right. Year one Superman. Yes. It was a wonderful book. And, here's young Clark in his t-shirt and the jeans and everything, which was a really cool take. I agree. But once you get into, here's the Daily Planet, here's the crew, here's how they act. For me, it wasn't necessarily working. And I think I only did it for 6 issues. And I was like George, it just wasn't a fit. And part of that is we came from a different place on the character. And then you got the opportunity, and I am curious about the idea when they decided to reintroduce the Crisis era Superman and Lois, and of course John Kent, and this wonderful miniseries that let us know, hey, guess what? Good news. Our Superman, and you'll forgive my editorial comment calling him our Superman, but yeah, don't worry, he's still there. And it obviously happened. And in fact, Dan, did you write that mini series during, I forget what the event was called prior to this mini series? Convergence. Thank you. It was Convergence where I had pitched Dan DiDio on the idea, because let's go back and say, what was Convergence? Convergence, when DC was moving its offices from New York to California, were 2 months of books that were going to kind of float the line, in effect, because it's pretty hard to do, current comics when you're on the move. And as we were working on all of that, one of the things I floated Dan an idea on was we had the old characters, Lois and Clark, on their own planet. And I just said, well, and the
the plan was for them to die, right?
Wow.
So I said all these old worlds were supposed to die, kind of symbolic of the DC offices. Everybody was supposed to go away. I said, what if we end the story with Lois and Clark having a baby, and as their planet is dying, they put the baby in the ship, and the last 2 pages are, we see the baby in the rocket goes off into space and disappears into the stars. And I said, that's the future. And he said, what future? I said, I don't know. It's the future. I don't know where that baby goes. I don't know what the story is after that, but it's the future. And so we had done that. And out of that, they started to realize they had certain problems with New 52 Superman. And they asked me to kind of take the old one, get it all set up again. And that's where I did that wonderful miniseries with the great Lee Weeks. And it worked so well in a lot of respects. That's the first Rebirth book right there. Doesn't have a logo on it, but I kind of call it pre-Rebirth.
I hear you, man. No, and I appreciated the way the story evolved, and New 52 Superman met this version of Superman. It's so funny, Dan. Every time they've introduced the black suit, I'm like, that isn't bad for an alternative. And certainly he was using it for stealth reasons, which yes. I love as well. It's a stealth suit, but I still got the S on, which I
yeah. And
I understand.
Yeah, and Lois was in stealth mode as well. I mean, they were living in California. She's writing books under a pseudonym. So, it worked out great. It was a lot of fun. And working with Lee is always very special.
That's excellent, man. Secret Shadow Advanced, and I will put this up and we can talk about it maybe later. He says your Batman Beyond felt like a direct sequel to the animated series. It sure did.
Thank you. That was so much fun. That's one of those things I went into thinking, well, let's see what I can do with this. Sometimes you don't have real firm ideas that way. And the more I worked on it, the more ideas I had, to the point where I really, really enjoyed it. That was a fun book for a while. It really was.
I'm going to have to see issue 3 of Wade's history if Terry has survived and is still going to be in our future. I hope he is.
Well, right now, issue 3 is on my drawing board because I'm drawing that. So,
wow, Dan, I'm taking away from deadlines. I apologize.
Well, as a matter of fact, I'm looking at a page that's like 9/10 done. It's going to get done tonight.
It's a great series, and I'm so happy for Mark. And better not. Damn, I was about to zoom in too. I realized too. I'm like, he doesn't want to spoil. Yep. DC will kill me if he does that. So no, it's cool, man. Stray Beans says not to be sycophantic, but Dan is solely responsible for my 30-plus year infatuation with comics. His issue of Superman 79 was my first comic, and still one of the coolest pieces of comic art.
Oh, thank you. So that must have been confusing, though, because you pick up your first comic and Superman is dead, and here's the cyborg, cyborg Superman playing the role. Yeah, that must have been a confusing start. But so thanks for hanging in there all these years.
Another great story that you were involved in, and I did want to ask you just in general that that period when the books were so interconnected, the Triangle period as it's known. Yeah. And you had 5 books because you even had a special for those skip week months and everything, that there was even, I think, a fifth book, if I remember correctly. Yep. And so Dan, again, you've been through all these different Superman summits and everything. And whatever they look like today compared to then. Can you go back? I mean, prior to the Triangle books, were you all getting together and doing it, or did you start writing at the Triangle period?
No, because when we first started to connect the books a bit, so this goes back to when you had, Adventures of Superman, Action Comics, which is sort of the team up book, and Superman itself, with Byrne doing 2 of those, and Wolfman and Ordway on Adventures of Superman. Yep. So after John left, there was some shifting that took place. And my first start was, drawing the Adventures of Superman annual. And then I was working on backup stories in the main books that Roger Stern was writing.
Oh, that's great.
Lex Luthor backup story at that time. But as we moved into the to the doing the main books, where it was kind of going for a bit. There were just 2 books that then became 3, that then grew into 4 with Man of Steel.
That's right. The 4 books. Yes.
Yeah. At first, we did not have the triangles as a numbering system. And we started even with 2 and then 3 books to connect the stories more. We did like Dark Knight over Metropolis, which was just a 1-month, 3-issue story with the 3 titles. And then, we did one called Time and Time Again and Crisis of the Crimson Kryptonite. We did a lot of different things that way. And readers came to us saying, how do we know which one comes out in what order? And that's where Mike Carlin, our editor, very brilliantly thought of the triangles. But the other part of it, John, is that since we started with a smaller group at first of, 2 books that then became 3, we grew our system of working with that connected fashion organically. And that helped a lot, so that as we did grow and add more books to the mix, by then we had our system in place. Mike Carlin was a brilliant editor. He was really good at hiring people that could get along in the room, so that we all had a lot of respect for each other. Everyone had room to offer their opinions and to help sculpt the stories. And for a while, it also helped that as we built this system, that Jerry Ordway and I were each writing and drawing a book, because that makes communication just a little more simple. So while you build it, simplicity is good, because it certainly got more complex as we went along.
Help me out. Because Barbara Kiesel, was she writing then back then as well? I know Louise was, Simonson.
No, Barbara was not ever really working on the books. Louise came on with Man of Steel #1. And by then, I had already been on maybe 2 years, I think, doing Adventures of Superman. And then she came in with Man of Steel #1. That was, I think, right around Superman 50, might have been around that same time. But yeah, that's how we were able to kind of grow it organically.
Gotcha. I'm glad you mentioned Cyborg Superman, because obviously he plays a role in your Treasury story, along with Maxima. They're kind of the main villains of the piece. And I didn't realize that, and I think there's a good explanation in the story of why Hank Henshaw is kind of got an equal power level of Superman. Was that the case even back in this when you introduced the character?
Yeah, it was. So when he first was introduced, before he ever became Cyborg Superman, he had 2 appearances in Adventures of Superman, which I was doing at the time. And when I first introduced him, I never had any idea whatsoever he would be back a second time, much less a third, fourth, fifth, and I'd still be doing it 35 years later. So, but when he first came in, it was that way. And there comes a point where he leaves Earth having kind of melded in with a piece of Kryptonian technology from the Matrix chamber that brought John to Earth. So that's where he was able to duplicate Superman's powers, as well as kind of take on his appearance.
This is funny. Ben Hayes says Hank Henshaw's first appearance was a Fantastic Four riff.
Yeah, it was.
That's cool.
Yeah. And it was, 4 people go up into space, only instead of surviving and becoming heroes, they meet tragic ends. So it was a bit of a play on that. And as I said, never had any idea that he was going to come back. And then I did it just 2 issues later, because we had to push something else off. So I said, I'll do this again. And once we were planning the return of Superman and getting into the idea of, we're going to do 4 different characters. And I said, one of them was the bad guy. And he trips everybody up. And at that point, we all said, who could it be? And I said, well, I have an idea. So that's where it all started.
That's fantastic. Yeah, Ben fills in the details and says his 3 comrades died, but Henshaw went crazy and stole the birth matrix. So, yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Very, very funny. And also, he says it's awesome that you took what could have been an FF joke character and turned him into one of the best Superman villains. I so agree. Yeah. and that turn during the death or the reign of the Superman era when didn't he blow up Coast City?
Yes.
Yeah.
So and that I think is, it's always odd if you sit down and try and create what is going to be the world's greatest villain. Good luck. 9 times out of 10, it's just not going to work out that way. It's hard to do. But then sometimes you're lucky enough to slip on the banana peel, hit your head on the concrete, and get an idea. Who knows? I mean, I always tell people creation is never a straight line. It goes like this all the time. So the idea is to recognize opportunity when it's there.
Is he one of your prouder, stronger, creative outputs that you've done?
Yeah, I think so. And especially because the world of Superman that I kind of came into. So if you go back to Superman even before Byrne came, that's when Lex Luthor was flying around in a purple and green suit using technology to fight him and everything. And then John and Marv mostly kind of redid Luthor and made him the evil businessman. But what I was finding is just not a lot of villains who could really mix it up with Superman and get in that physical all-out sort of battle. We did not have Zod. Superman was the last Kryptonian, which I still like best, by the way. But, we did not have Zod. So I think a lot of what I realized I wanted to do was create those big, strong, well-powered and properly motivated villains. So hence Doomsday, hence Cyborg Superman. I mean, it's just, at the time, there was Lex Luthor, Prankster, Toyman, Mr. Z, lots of guys in business suits, and I wanted physical fights.
I get it. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think for the longest time, it was tough finding a good rogues gallery from a power level standpoint against Superman. That's one of the things I like about the movie. And I have friends who are like, man, he shouldn't be hit that much or whatever. I'm like, no, he should. That doesn't take away from his strength. Give him an equal force to deal with. That's much, and that's why it was great, even in the trailer, to see him literally hit the ice. And it's like, all right, what the hell just beat the hell out of Superman? That's a good mystery. You've intrigued us, and I think that was an excellent opening scene.
Well, the other thing about it is, so if I remember, you think back to the first Christopher Reeve movie, and the promotion was very much built around the idea that you will believe a man can fly. Remember, I mean, that was the tagline. And so I remember a couple of friends and I going on the first night, opening night, that, we could get tickets. And the credits came on. And right away, as soon as those credits came on, it was like, oh my God, right? And so I think what's so effective in this film is, if you think of the opening scene of the movie with the Star Wars-like setup, 30 years ago, this happened. 3 years ago, that happened. 3 days ago, this, that kind of thing. I think that pulled us into the story right away and was tremendously effective. And that got things moving in a hurry.
Another complaint I've seen is, well, we didn't get the origin. And I am like, dude, we've been around for more than 80 years. Everybody knows the Superman origin at this point. And I even saw a major, what qualifies as a magazine these days. I mean, literally like Esquire or some kind of read where the person who wrote the article is like, well, that's one of the things that's missing. And it's like, I don't know, man. I think pretty much everybody knows Superman's origin at this point.
Oh, I do too. And even if we didn't get it here, if it becomes necessary somewhere, it can happen. And you can think of so many different connections that could be built to establish that. How many of us ever picked up a comic book that we really enjoyed, and it just also happened to be an origin issue for the character? I mean, I read, whether it was Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, Fantastic Four, how many comics did I read of their individual adventures before I got the origin? And then it was like, ooh, now I get it. Okay. But yeah, somehow I survived without knowing, and I might have questions, but that kept me interested.
By the way, from the pardon me, I'm going to cough. From the Flying Fist Ranch, Bo Smith, everybody jumping in, a fine Gardner creator in his own right, and Catwoman among other things. He says, saw you in the weekend edition of the Wall Street Journal, Dan. Having trouble with my words tonight. Thanks for always representing our business so well, my friend. Yeah, absolutely, man.
Well, this is the first I've heard of it, so I hope I didn't sound like a moron.
Very cool. I didn't realize that you were in the Journal this weekend. Yeah. That's great, man.
Thank you, Bo. I hope you're well.
That's excellent. Yeah, Bo, I'll bug you on Facebook. It's been a long time since Bo and I have had a conversation, and it's always good to talk. Of course, creator of Winona Earp, fantastic Sci-Fi Channel show.
So, Bo, just type something in. What did you think of Guy Gardner?
Yeah, really, absolutely, Bo. I would love to hear your 2 cents if you're still watching. I certainly hope so. Because, there you go. And he says still alive and well, which is great. Okay. And yeah, all right, Bo. So chime in about Guy Gardner. I was so, it was good. It was certainly comic book accurate, giving him the Mo Howard bowl cut as far as his hair goes. But I was really pleased with how well it worked, and just in general, because we love Nathan Fillion as a hero, no matter what he does.
So just so you know, at the premiere, I had the pleasure of sitting next to Joe Staten and his wife Hillary, which was a lot of fun. And it's the first time they ever got to do anything like that.
That's great.
Appropriately, Joe was feeling very, very proud, as he should, because for those of you who don't know, Joe Staten is the one who designed that look for Guy Gardner, when he first debuted in that green costume with the white belt and the high collar and everything. So he had great fun with it, as did Kevin McGuire, who was also there.
Synchro says, I would love a Guy Gardner year one. Yeah, I would like to see a real look at Guy, because certainly when he started back in if it was the 60s, early 70s, he was a more straight arrow kind of another Green Lantern, much like John Stewart. And then when they brought him back, he was supposedly in a coma for a long time, and he came out of it and had a personality change. And then we got the arrogant Guy Gardner that we now expect and everything. So I wouldn't mind seeing that.
Guy Gardner, yes.
I completely agree. Bo says regarding Guy Gardner, loved it because it is the introduction to the whole world, a great segue for the character. Yeah, again, as I said earlier, I hope we see more of Guy in the next 5 years, because again, I don't know what the full agenda is. We all know that the Supergirl movie is next. Maybe there's an opportunity, given that she is in an intergalactic thing, that we might see Guy in space, given that the Green Lanterns are in space. And also, I know we have the HBO Lantern show coming up, but it sounds like the Lantern show is going to be a more earthbound show. So I think
so, but I thought Nathan Fillion was quoted as saying he has sworn more on that show than he has the other one. So I believe, I'm pretty sure he was quoted as saying something to that effect. That's
cool. I love how they are interweaving the movies, the television shows, and even the animated shows. And it was great to see Frank Grillo as Rick Flag.
Oh, absolutely.
As he is in the Creature Commandos and everything. Yes. Although people are like, hey, how come he doesn't have white hair? And it's like, you got to relax, everybody. And it was because he was making Tulsa King close enough to the or one after the other. I'm assuming Superman first, and then he had to go to Tulsa King. And, he had to look like himself for that Stallone TV show that's on Paramount and everything. Pete Beiser says Kevin McGuire doesn't get as much adoration these days. I think he deserves as we head into the Maxwell Lord Justice League era. I bet he will. Well, I'll tell you, Pete, if you didn't notice over the weekend, I replayed my Kevin McGuire, J.M. DeMatteis interview that I did with them about 5 years ago, talking about the Bwahaha Justice League. And I mean, that's the great thing. We know, and it's so funny because we're like, Justice Gang, what's that? And it's like, relax. It makes sense. Trust me. And it was, I liked Sean Gunn's brief cameo as Max and everything. Again, I'm sorry, minor spoiler, everybody. Very minor spoiler. But I like the directions this is going in, as we said earlier, Dan. Did you get to meet people from the movie? Which people did you get to meet?
Well, I did. Well, we had actually met a good few of them earlier, because last year we were down, some of us were invited for a set visit. And that was fun because at that point, no photos had been released yet. And so we didn't even know what the costume looked like. And, we were on set. David Cornsweet walks out and he's wearing the costume. And that's the first time I had even seen it. And that was true for everybody. Even Jim Lee, who was with us, hadn't seen it quite yet. So he walked out in the costume. It was great to see. And so we got to meet Cornsweet. We got to meet Nicholas Hoult, who plays Lex Luthor. Watched them film a scene for the day as they were working on that. Met James Gunn at the time, and a lot of the production people who were working on the film. So that was fun. So yes, we had already been lucky enough to meet them and then see them again at the premiere.
How was what'd you think of Rachel Broussard's portrayal of Lois?
I thought she was fantastic, and we had not gotten to see her when we were on set. So it was great to see that. We had been able to see some scenes with her that had already been shot. They
nice.
Some of that.
That's
no
cool.
Music or sound effects yet. So we had gotten to see that, but to really see it on screen with a tighter edit and everything pulled together, I thought she was absolutely fantastic.
I'm with you, man. No, I think, and I really loved Elizabeth Tulloch from Superman and Lois, the TV show, and I liked Erica Durance as well. But yes. Rachel's right there in the team photo with all of those excellent, and of course the great Margot Kidder. But no, she did a great, and not to mention Phyllis Coates and Noelle Neal back in the day. Yes. Were you a George Reeves watcher back in the day, Dan?
I was, of course, in reruns.
No, me too.
Yeah.
We're not that old, absolutely.
But I was, and the funny thing is, I started getting into it when Batman, the live action TV series, was on live. I do date back to that. So because that was in color, I was much more a Batman guy. Plus he had the cool car, what's better than that?
Now as an adult, I appreciate those first two, I think it was the first two seasons of George Reeves Superman that are in black and white, because it was a little grittier. Certainly as a little kid,
yes,
loved the color episodes and everything. But now, if I am going to watch one, it probably is either a Phyllis Coates or early Noelle Neal episode.
Yep, I agree.
Have you ever watched the Kirk Allen ones, the serials?
I have, yes. And, I got to say, there's something about those that I find really interesting, in part because his hair was sort of the natural fit for Superman, right? That's not a wig. And he looks good in the suit, and they really give it the very best effort for its time in terms of what had to have been a minimal budget and certainly zero technology. So, yeah.
If people don't know that are listening or watching, you really should at least catch some of the Superman serials, because when it was time for him to fly, it would turn into animation. And that's fine. I mean, and really, of course, the great Fleischer cartoons.
Oh, yeah.
And everything. Were any of those designs ever an influence on you, Dan? Who are your Superman artists that influenced how you drew the Man of Steel?
For me, it really is Kurt Swan. I mean, there's Wayne Boring mixed in with Al Plastino, of course, as well, but it was really Kurt Swan. And when I had been at DC in the, my earliest days there, I'd been there several months, and Karen Berger, who was then not even an editor, she was editorial coordinator at that day. So she coordinated scheduling on all the books. And she called me up one day and she said, we've got some Superman stuff. Can you draw Superman? I said, no, only Kurt Swan can draw Superman. And I said, no. So go figure. But that's what I had in my head. And I would also add Neil Adams, because his covers were just so brilliant. And then there was the Superman Muhammad Ali book as well. But so I think that's pretty much what I would have been looking at for inspiration on Superman.
What did the David Cornsweet suit look like in person compared to the screen? Because I got to be honest, when I first saw, and I mean, I was still cool with it, but when I saw, it looks like a regular suit. It certainly isn't molded to him in the way that Cavill's suit or some of the other iterations. He's an intimidating guy. But I would say first the suit, and then as a person, if you got to actually meet him on set and everything. But yeah, tell me about your thoughts on the suit.
It's funny, and I think this is what good costume designers can pull off. It looked better on screen. And really, I think that's a lot of it. And that I'm sure is part of what they anticipate, because you put them under the lights. The suit immediately looks different under the lights than it does when he's standing out to the side of the stage where we're all just chatting or something like that. And I think, therefore, once I was sitting in the theater watching, I said, wow, that looks good. Yeah, it did look much better on screen. So my tip of the hat to the costume designers. And what I like about it is, and this is what I responded to right from the start, was I like the way they handle the cape. It, by coming down, to this level here, it widens the shoulders. And by bringing it all the way down to the floor, I mean, the end of the cape is really only that far off the floor. It lengthens the figure. It makes the cape a little more imposing, and it makes him feel more like Superman. So I responded to that aspect of it right away.
I heard Nicholas Hoult being interviewed, and he had initially hoped to audition for Superman. And he said when he saw Corn Sweat, who I guess is, is a couple inches taller and everything, a little physically bigger. You're a tall guy, Dan, relatively speaking. How big is Corn Sweat?
I would say he's probably maybe about an inch more than me.
Okay.
Maybe a little more. Yep. So, but yeah, certainly in terms of stature, and I think this comes across in the movie, there's a bit of a size difference between the two of them. But that's also where I think Holt is so tremendously effective as Lex, because he's still athletic and still moves very well around the set and everything, and gives us the Lex that's sort of into it and quite mobile.
I hear you, and I was a little concerned that Nicholas was just because I've been watching him since that Hugh Grant movie About a Boy, so I've been watching him since he was a kid. And I mean, listen, he was excellent as the Beast in X-Men First Class, and I really love him as an actor. I think he's excellent. But I'll have to admit, when I first saw him, I don't know. I mean, and not with any like, I'm angry or whatever. I'm like, I guess I'll see. And no, he was a great Luthor. He's a fantastic Luthor.
Well, one of the things that happened for me is I think the announcement came out before Juror number 2 had been released, and when I watched Juror number 2, that's when I thought, oh yeah, I can see this. I can see it. I don't know if you've seen the movie, but it certainly was.
I haven't. I haven't, but I've seen other things he's done, certainly.
Yeah.
All right, now I don't know if Hayden's making fun of me or asking you specifically, is how big are you? How tall are you? So,
6'1".
There you go. All right, there you go. So Hayden, you got the straight answer, unless you're making fun of it. How big are you? It's wrong forum, everybody. No, I think you're but anyway, that's fine. No, and Dan, what, did you get to go to the premiere for Man of Steel 12 years ago?
No, I did not.
Okay.
No, I don't know that things like that were as common then, because I just, it's weird because I don't remember a lot of things like that taking place for creators in general. It's obviously very nice that they do that now. We all appreciate it.
Oh God, yeah. No, I think that's terrific, and it only builds more community amongst the comic side and the film and TV side.
Yeah.
Hayden is agreeing with you. He loves Juror number 2. He says it's very 12 Angry Men. Well, 12 Angry Men's a classic, so I'll take your guys' word for it. Is that on Amazon or is that
I don't know. It's got to be somewhere now. I mean,
it's a feature. Okay.
I think it came out in late 2023.
Yeah, I know it was recent. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we know Supergirl is next.
Yeah.
And I love the casting. I think she looks perfect. Again, beyond that, if you've seen the movie, you know what we're talking about, and that's cool. But also there's photos out there.
Yeah.
So, but I'm excited. I'm excited to see that. Metamorpho was terrific.
Yeah, wasn't that fun?
Metamorpho's in there.
Yeah. If you think back to, the 12-cent days for me, you were 15 cents. I bought them at 12 cents because I remember, seeing Metamorpho and just going, I don't get it. What? This is really weird. Who is this guy? I was constantly intrigued by it. Not to mention, Simon Stagg and Java, things like that. So fun stuff. It was really fun to see.
I'm a big fan of the original Metamorpho, and I was just telling, and now I'm blanking. It was Al Ewing just wrote that Metamorpho miniseries for DC.
Yeah,
with Steve Lieber, and I was sorry that it ended so quickly. But I would tell fans of Rex Mason and the whole Metamorpho group, man, pick up that miniseries. You will not be disappointed.
Yes.
And we also saw allusions to Metamorpho's world in the movie. That again, I think is grist for the mill in a future story. I mean, that's the thing, Dan. I don't know what to expect with Peacemaker season 2 and some of the other subsequent things that are coming up. But that's the thing. I mean, they've planted so many seeds in this movie that I hope we get something of echoes of what we got already, whether it's a cameo in a cartoon or a TV show or whatever. But yeah,
definitely. And I think that's the I think real aspect of the success in a lot of ways, which is it's one thing to have a movie drive big numbers and make a profit and everything else. But when you have people walking out saying, I want to see more, and I want to see more of this, and this, and here's the 5 things, and let's throw Mr. Terrific on the board as well. That's, to me, that's where you really want to feel good about it.
Excellent. Unfortunately, Synchro Shadow goes, oh man, the Al Ewing Metamorpho series is already over. Yeah, it is, and that's too bad. But maybe with the success of the movie, it may wake up people at DC to go, hey, let's do another one. I know that Alan and Steve would love that. So the
other part of it is this. If you think back, Metamorpho on his own was never really a big success, right? But when Mike Barr put him in The Outsiders, that's really where I think he took off and found more of an audience. And then through later iterations of The Outsiders, he was there as well. And the Metamorpho I saw in the movie reminded me a little bit of that, like the Metamorpho that Tom Rainey was drawing. And so I think, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't know this, that's just what I kind of hearkened back to when I saw the actor.
And perhaps we will get a Justice Gang miniseries with them all, all these new heroes that they've introduced in the movie and stuff, and we might see that as well. Synchro says the cool thing about the recent Superman film is it got one of my friends to ask to borrow some comics from me. I loaned him 2 Tom King classics, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, which is the basis for the next movie, and Tom's excellent Superman Up in the Sky miniseries. So that's great.
Yep. Good start.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Carrie was wondering if we're going to still go. We're still going for a few more minutes, and I want to invite people to chime in with more questions about Superman or other Jurgens runs. We mentioned Batman and Batman Beyond. I wanted to obviously mention something that's for both something that Dan has already done and he's returning to, and I know it's in progress. Right? Is it okay to talk about
that's been announced? We can talk about that. Yes.
Batman First Night, everybody. The excellent miniseries that Mike and Dan did, Mike Perkins and Dan, of Batman in the Detective 27 era. That really helped. Forget about first year. Let's say first month of the existence of Batman. Dan, it was so great, and Mike really knocked it out of the park from an artistic standpoint, and your writing as well. So I'm really glad to see that it is getting another story from you guys.
Yeah, thank you. This one is called, our first effort last year was Batman the First Night. This is Batman the Second Night. And so we continue the story. It's set very much in the same time frame. Mike has about 25 pages in so far. They're absolutely gorgeous, as we would all expect. And it's just, he's so wonderful to work with because he is so dedicated to trying to capture the world of 1939. And that's when Batman first showed up. That's where we set this story. We have advanced the ball just a couple of months. World War II has started. So that is part of the backdrop. The Great Depression is still in effect. That is also a strong part of it, as well as all the strange things that are happening around Gotham City. I think our first issue comes out, so it should be solicited soon. I believe it comes out in September. So
wow. Okay.
So, yes.
Damn. Wow. And Dan, again, I'll say it for myself, and this is my editorial, that I suspect, and listen, Dan, I love what you guys are doing regardless. It is a great story. Mike is killing it on the art, but it is interesting. I think I saw it on one of the comic news sites that it is DC's intent to really kind of start the ball rolling, to start thinking about the 100th anniversary of DC, which isn't until 2035, but also within that time frame, either 34 or 35, we're going to see that Detective 27 itself will fall into the public domain. And as we've seen with Popeye and Steamboat Willie, Mickey Mouse, that there have been other companies, both movie and and comics, that have been able to use the original versions of these things. But it is my suspicion that given the runway that you guys are allowed to have and explore that period, that's going to make it a lot tougher for people to tell the Batman stories, the guy of Detective 27. That's my feeling.
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I went into this along with Mike and said, we want to do a story set in 1939 with the way everything looked then. If after that legal affairs and business and everybody else got involved and said, hey, I'm unaware of that conversation.
Fair enough, man.
Yep.
All right, Carrie, I gotta scroll up for your first comment here. Let's see here. There we go. She says, I was at a con this weekend and overheard at a vendor booth, that's my Dan Jurgens. He killed Superman. I need some really obscure fact counterpoint with next time someone reduces you to that.
I've gotten used to it. What can I say?
That's hilarious, man. Well, again, a big body of work. I don't think Dan has anything to apologize for. That's fantastic. And really, Dan, do you mind retelling like what led to the death of Superman?
Well, I think, in a nutshell, it gets back to some of what we were talking about earlier, which is just that I was looking to do a physical fight. and I walked in the room. We had to change the plans for Superman 75 in terms of some other things that were going to be happening there. So we needed some new story material. And I had two ideas written on a yellow legal pad. One was Death of Superman, and the other one was Monster Crashes Metropolis. And we had talked about doing the death before, but never got any traction with it. And even when I brought it up in this moment, our editor, Mike Carlin, said, you can't just kill Superman. What's the story? You're not giving me a story. And we went on and talked about a lot of other things. And then my recollection is later we somehow got back to this physical fight idea, because I just wanted to do a monster story kind of thing, but one that would stick, not just one that shows up for a month. And Jerry said, well, maybe we should just kill him. And then we started really talking about the Funeral for a Friend storyline, or what would be that, which is what is the emotional impact of Superman's death? What is the world like without him? And after we realized we had material there, only then did we go back and start to talk about it. And who would do it? Would it be Luthor or somebody else? And on that same legal pad, I did a quick little sketch of Doomsday. And so, we decided to go with that, and we were off and running. Obviously, that's 3 days condensed into 3 minutes, but there you go.
That's cool. And also the evolution, or as we've learned more about Doomsday's story, because he really was this thing that just crashed and had the power, and ultimately leading to that epic Superman 75, where every page was a splash page.
Yeah, and John, it really was us making the decision. No, we don't have to do the origin. If we do the origin, we're slowing the story down. We wanted a very fast-moving story. We didn't want to get caught up in the origin. We didn't even know the origin at that point. We didn't even get into that. We just said, no, let's get into this. Let's just hit the ground running and see just how fast-paced we can make the story. And that took us through the idea of an issue with just 4 panels a page, then 3 panels a page, then 2, and just the splash pages. So it felt like it was going faster and faster and faster, and that was the intent.
That's great, man. No, it stands the test of time. So, developing Doomsday's backstory, tell me about that.
So as I was drawing the story more and more, I started to think about what would the origin be? Because when we first see him, he's buried in a container deep below the surface. How did he get there? Who put him there? Why was he put there? And what was the origin? And as I thought about it more and more, I started to have this idea of extreme pace of evolution that would allow us to take a creature that would die over and over and over again until he would continually adapt. And so like evolution at hyperspeed, if you will. And so I took that to DC and said, and we can do this as a standalone, 3-issue at that time, prestige format, 48 pages per book story. And they said, yeah, let's do it. Start. So there you go. That's how it all came together.
Is Doomsday still around in current continuity? I don't even know where he is right now.
Yeah, they've actually been using him quite a lot, and recently did a story, Josh Williamson did, where the Time Trapper is revealed to be Doomsday.
Wow.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Part of that evolutionary track.
Wow. Because now going back to, was it Legion of Three Worlds? I forget who the Time Trapper was revealed to be in that story.
I think we had gotten to the point where there were generally theories of about 4 different time trappers and who they could be. And because they were coming from different ideas that different people had over different times. So I think we've been teased with that one quite a lot.
I'll tell you, I was talking to Jeff Loeb yesterday, and he was telling me, coming back to the Hush story, Hush 2, and even Last Halloween, but really specifically Hush 2. And it is interesting, Dan, that because of the current DC All-In initiative, that everything really does need to be in continuity, according to editorial. And I respect that, but I also know that's a tall order for all you guys and women that write this stuff, because I'm waiting. I'll wait for your 3rd issue before I have my next conversation about it with Mark Wade. But because he was telling me that, okay, fine, there are elements of the current status quo that I don't want in this story, so it doesn't need to be acknowledged. For example, that Bruce doesn't live in Wayne Manor anymore, but he has another Batcave, and he's like, okay, well, what can I have in that Batcave for Jim to draw and everything? And again, it works, and so 10 years from now, whatever that current status quo is, you don't have to worry about that. The Hush stories are kind of timeless in that way. Or even having Vandal Savage as the current commissioner of Gotham City, and that Jim's a beat cop and stuff. Jim's in the story. Vandal Savage doesn't need it. My example, and Dan, I don't know if you ever wrote any of Blue Superman, Electric Blue Superman, but that's an awkward moment. I appreciated it at the moment, and I really appreciated the callback to the original Red and Blue Superman with a twist. But yeah, I'm like, I got to be honest. No pun intended, I never warmed up to Blue Superman.
No, and that's fine. But you know what also is true? It is, and I've always been amazed at this, and I can use Spider-Man as a bit of a better example. So when they were doing the Ben Reilly clone stuff, and I worked on some of that, there were a lot of people who hated it. But Ben Reilly is still an immensely popular character. And the amount of people who come up to me and talk about that stuff just really making an impact on them is tremendous. Now, I don't get as much of that with Electric Blue Superman, but I get a surprising amount of it. That I think if you were in that moment, that 12 or 13-year-old kid, and that summer, that kind of thing, it just worked for you. And then, all these years later, it's something you fondly remember. And the other part of it is, we all grew up with Superman, Red, Superman, Blue, Superman with a lion's head, things like that.
Agreed. And also, like you said, no, it is that first taste that intrigues you about a book, so it's your favorite. And yeah, man, I am amazed at the resiliency of Ben Reilly, but I won't deny that when I read that first what if story, that what if the spider clone had lived, that they did and everything, I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I remember reading in Marvel Tales the Jackal's Spider-Man clone story.
Oh, sure. Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, I know. Again, I could appreciate all that. So no, that's wonderful and everything. Are there other projects that you are writing or working on that you could talk about?
The only ones are the ones that I've mentioned right here, and that is obviously right now it's getting caught up on Batman the Second Night. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm drawing my section of issue 3 of History of the DC Universe. Doug Mankey is drawing. Each issue is divided into 2 different artists. And so Doug Mankey and I are doing issue 3.
Another fantastic Superman artist. So one of my favorite guys.
Each issue is 30 pages, so we each have our 15. And Mark has very kindly loaded it up with each page needing all sorts of reference and time and energy to work on.
At this point, Dan, is it tough? Are there and also maybe the time period that you're dealing with to do your research? Or I mean, because again, you'll forgive me, I would seem that a lot of this is second nature given how long
most of this is in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
It's sort of like it gets down to this more, John, and it is okay. You say you want Power Girl on the page, which costume? It's that.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. So, but no, this is in my wheelhouse.
There you go. That's fantastic. Yeah. And I know it's a very large state, Minnesota, land of 10,000 lakes. Yeah. But how close proximity are you to Doug Mankey? You're both Minnesotans, right?
Oh yeah, he's about a half hour.
Oh, that's not bad.
Oh yeah, no, he's about a half hour away. Pat Gleason.
Sure.
Yeah, he's here as well. Peter Krause is here. He's
done
all sorts of stuff. So yeah,
love Pete's work.
Community here.
Yeah. No, everyone you mentioned, I'm a big fan of all their work. Absolutely.
Ben Percy is about an hour and 15 minutes away. So yeah.
Just talked to Ben a couple weeks ago. Absolutely, that's great. What about bringing back Jor-El for the story, Mr. Oz? Right? Wasn't that his name?
Yeah.
Tell me about that whole origin.
So the character of Mr. Oz had shown up prior to us doing Rebirth. And it is one of those things that had already been introduced, and people had questions about it. Who would it be? And so we were in a conference room. It was Pete Tomasi, me, Jeff Johns was there. The Superman editorial crew was there as well. And we talked over different ideas. And Jeff had mentioned at one point he had thought maybe about having it be Jor-El, but had no idea necessarily how it would work or anything. We went back to different ideas. But one of the things we kept coming back to was if it had been Jor-El, in terms of just building intrigue in the books and coming up with something that would be different from what we had seen before, how could that possibly play out? What could we do with it? So we went from the small shots we had seen of Mr. Oz, which were basically a guy with a giant cane, in silhouette. I think all I had was stuff that J.R. Jr. had drawn. That's my memory. And then we expanded into what we did and said, let's play this straight and see if we can make it work.
What a disturbing design of damaged Jor-El, not only mentally, but physically as well. One eye missing and half his hair is gone. And and it was great because I can also appreciate Superman doubting that it's him because of, this whole time. But yes. Yeah, man, it's, Sarah Synchro says, not going to lie, the Jor-El being Dr. Oz. No. That's the reality show Doctor. Was kind of a bummer for me that he and that utilization after the reveal was met. Well, I disagree. I thought it was intriguing. And listen, every moment of the status quo, this could be wiped away with some new current continuity or whatever. I mean, I hate to say it.
Yeah. No, and that's always the case. And there are different ways to look at different things. I think that for the moment of the story that we were in, it worked okay. I think afterwards, when it became the story of he and John, you know, and everything else, it went in a bit of a different direction. So I think there are different things that come into play on that one. Yes.
You don't have to reveal any opinions or anything like that. But given that Brian Bendis, obviously his run followed yours, and also people were kind of bummed that we didn't get more of 10-year-old or 12-year-old John. And by the way, I love that in your Treasury story that we get more of that period of John and everything. But do you ever talk to a creator and go, oh man, what the hell, or anything?
No, I mean, I think in that one, I think the books would have been better served just with having John stay young for a while. And I think the characters would have been better served, in part because the person who got cheated more was Lois. You know, Lois is John's mother, and I think we missed that development and interplay between them. And if you have someone, if John had been in the universe for 5, 7, 8 years, 10 years, whatever, as a 10-year-old, then it would be entirely different. But it all happened so fast that I think that's why people said, gee, we lost this. And plus the Super Sons, you know, with John and Damian had been quite popular as well.
Very popular. And it's so funny. I noticed over the weekend, I put up the special thanks moment of the credits, and Bob Haney was in there, and some snarky guy's like, yeah, what did Bob Haney ever do besides Super Sons? And I'm like, he co-created Metamorpho, and I love a Brave and Bold run beyond the Super Sons. But really, you guys all took that idea of the Super Sons and really made it this fun thing that, you know, again, was just great to see, because we had the two sires of the world's finest team and everything that are, you know, kind of figuring out the world and everything as kids.
Yeah, and they were a good mix because they were so different. You know, they were as different as Superman and Batman are. And that's what made it fun. And especially when it was first introduced, you know, Pat Gleason, well, first of all, you know, both Peter and Pat had such a great take on it. But then Pat Gleason could draw this pouty Damian that was just fantastic. And he had already done that with Pete on the Batman and Robin stuff. So
sure.
Established there, yes.
Dan, is the door still open for you at Marvel?
I'm doing a bunch of covers for Marvel right now.
Hey, great!
I've been doing variant covers on Jedi Knights, which is the new Mark Guggenheim Star Wars book.
Yes.
That, you know, I've got the cover for number 10 on my board right now. I'm also doing a Spider-Man cover as soon as I'm back from San Diego. So, the door's still open there. I've been there, you know, doing all sorts of covers.
We mentioned earlier that Bruno Redondo, am I saying it right?
Yes.
Okay, so for Dan's Treasury edition that just came out last week of Superman, mostly it's Bruno. But that said, there is this great section of Dan doing interiors during the flashback, period. Yeah,
there's just kind of reminding everyone of who Superman is, because again, we look at this as this is the kind of thing, especially with a movie out, that could be someone's first Superman book.
Amen.
We anticipate that it will be. So
I agree. I think a lot of the fathers are going to hand this to their kid who had such a great time and then go, all right, read this. Because, you know, Dan, again, we were talking about the old Treasury editions back then. And I always love telling the story of when I was in the Wisconsin Dells and in some hotel gift shop, and the Captain Marvel Shazam white cover Treasury edition.
Oh, okay.
And I'm just looking at it, and my dad walks by and goes, hey, that's Captain Marvel. I read Captain Marvel. Do you want that? And I'm like, yes, please. You know, I'm like, I was like 6 or 7 years old. I'm like, and it was great. We went through it, and he's like, hey, look, there's Dr. Savannah. He goes, this is fantastic. And it just made me love my father that much more, but also got me into Captain Marvel and everything.
That's absolutely awesome. That's a great story.
Sure, man. Did the 80-page Giants, and when you read some of those older stories that you were too young to read, you know, or even maybe not even born, the first those collections back in the day, were they great for you?
I 100%. I was totally hooked on those, and that's where reading those 80-page Giants, where I got to read, you know, the Batman taking the cowl off in front of Joe Chill.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
And, the other one was I didn't even know what comic books were. So one night, I knew Batman was on TV, but I didn't know what comic books were. Walking down the street, there's a couple of kids sitting on their front stoop, and they've got these 4-color pamphlets. There were comic books. And one of them had the 25-cent Giant with Robin Dies at Dawn reprinted.
Sure.
And it's on the cover, and I'm just looking at those. Robin can't be dead. I just saw him on TV. What what is that? And it was really, that was my first exposure to comic books. And was that 25-cent, 80-page Giant. So yeah, I devoured those things because it was, here is the past of these characters, so you could really start to understand them. But I think even then I was interested in how those stories were just so different stylistically from what I was reading currently, and so that's where, this Wayne Boring Superman looks quite a lot different than Kurt Swan's. He's like weighs 100 pounds more, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Figure all that out.
He's a genius artist, and it's so funny, Dan, because I too was first exposed to Kurt Swan Superman in the 70s and the reprints and everything. Yeah. And yeah, man, I had that Bonanza hardcover of Superman from the 30s to the 70s, and there's a lot of Wayne Boring, I think, in there. And that was my first exposure to Wayne Boring, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, and he had the stock poses, and he did them well.
Yeah, and no, again, and also it was contemporary with the George Reeves show.
Yeah.
So I understood all that in later years as well. So I've certainly softened up on my Wayne Boring concerns.
I have very much so. In fact, there's a lot there to admire.
Hayden says he loves seeing that DC is putting books in Dollar Tree and other places. Hope kids check them out. Oh, I didn't realize that. That's fantastic.
That's great. I was, about 6-7 years ago now, part of the effort to put, the new material in Walmart.
Yes.
It was really interesting, and we were so hopeful. And obviously, a lot of things in the world changed with COVID and everything. But that was, I think, a really good, strong effort to try and get material into places with new, fresh eyes.
I agree. And honestly, Dan, I saw here in Chicago at various Walmarts, shelving is so crucial.
Yep.
And some of them did put them with their book section and magazine section and whatever. Others put them with baseball cards and trading cards. Yep. And literally were just like, if you really weren't looking for them, you could easily overlook them.
Yes.
And I thought that was unfortunate. And again, what are you going to do? That's the vagrancies of retail. So, or vagueness, I should say, of retail. But yeah, now we mentioned San Diego. What are you doing in San Diego?
I'm fortunate enough to be one of, I don't know, they call them honored guests or something like that. So I'm actually there on behalf of the con. So for those of you who don't have anything better to do on day one, which is Thursday, there's a spotlight on Dan Jurgens' panel. Also doing a lot of different panels this time around. And I'll, try and grab some time in Artist Alley here and there. So lots of stuff. I mean, that's what that con is. Lots of stuff.
I certainly hope that at your spotlight panel, I don't know if you've ever gotten an Inkpot award before.
I have, yes.
Oh, that's great. Well, all right. Well, then you're already part of the club, so that's cool.
Yeah. Which I very much appreciate. Very kind of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, come on, Dan. Again, the career speaks for itself in all the best ways. Yeah. So that's great. Peter asks and says, let's see if the new digital marketplace will help get comics to kids' hands and pick up where Comixology left off. I appreciate that, Peter, because that gives me an opportunity to mention that this Friday here on Word Balloon, I'll be talking to David Steinberger and Chip Mosier of Ichiban, Neon Ichiban. I had to think of what their title is. I'm still confused by that title, but they have a new digital comic platform initiative that they are putting out there. How will it fare against Comixology and Amazon? Not to mention DC Universe and Marvel Unlimited. We shall see. Mm-hmm. Secret says, I would love to see you at C2E2 in 2026. I'm a teacher, I assume he says. Mm-hmm. It lands during his spring break. Well, I certainly hope so. Dan, were you there this year?
No, I wasn't. I haven't been there for a couple of years. I have to get back. have to get back soon.
So you're doing San Diego at the end of this month. Then only a couple weeks after that, you're at Terrificon with me and Mohegan Sun. Are there other conventions this year?
No, after Terrificon, well, no, I take that back. There are a couple more after that, I believe. I just don't have my notes in front of me. I think 2 months in advance, that's about it.
That's cool.
And a lot of it right now is just trying to get through the next 6 weeks and get everything done that I have to do. And then I want to take a bit of a break in September. So,
attaboy. That's great, man.
Yes.
Well, again, everybody, if you haven't picked up this fantastic Treasury edition, Hero for All, the Superman Treasury 2025 that Dan and company have just put out there, it's a fantastic story. It is a great first Superman comic if you are taking your kid to see the movie, and then he is like, I want more. Well, that's the good news, and that's always the great news about comics. There's always more.
I wanted this to be an evergreen type of story that really could endure that way. And that's what we were shooting for. I think we hit the mark. And again, it is to come out the week that the movie did, to have the backup feature in it that addresses the movie and everything else. I think it's just really kind of it's everything kind of falling into place in a very nice way. So yes, give it a look, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny. I meant to mention earlier when we were talking about that original Treasury edition when the first movie came out. I didn't realize that it was part of either the Salkins contract or somebody's contract that an actual movie adaptation of the movie story was not allowed. And unlike, the Batman 89 adaptation that Jerry did and some of the other great movie adaptations we had over there. And further, I didn't know until I spoke to him in the last couple of years that Elliot Magin's Last Son of Krypton novel was his pitch for a Superman movie. And when they said, yeah, that's okay, we got Mario Puzo, he went down 2 floors to Warner Books and said, hey, want a Superman novel?
Yeah.
And, yes, we do.
Yeah. Well, there's a movie coming. Why not? Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. What does Secret say here? This might be the final comment. Dan, of all the Superman origin stories, Birthright, Secret Origin, For All Seasons, and others, what do you feel resonates most with your vision of Superman?
It would probably be a split vote between Secret Origins and Man of Steel, which is the one that John Byrne did.
Yes.
The nice thing about what John did is it was 6 issues, I believe, that said, we start, here's Superman, we see Krypton, we understand Krypton, which at that time he totally overhauled and made all new.
Yeah.
We see his first meeting with Batman. He takes us through the first several years of Superman's life in this, and it is very nice that way. With Secret Origins, I assume you mean the one that Jeff Johns did.
I would assume so too.
Yeah. That one, and I think it was Gary Frank that drew it, right?
Yes, it was. Very good.
Yeah. That is very nice because we see Clark as a kid. And it really sets up the relationship between he and Lex Luthor and how that plays out going forward. And we get the great scene where Superman rescues Lois as she's kind of plummeting with the helicopter just right out of the movie, which is spectacular. So I think, and Johns isn't necessarily in continuity quite the same way anymore. But it still works so well as something to introduce the character. Both of those do a brilliant job of that. So those would be my votes.
And for the Johns era, I like that xenophobic attitude of Lex's, whether he really, at the end of the day, it's his ego that he wants to be the man of tomorrow for Metropolis, and then this alien shows up. But I really, and I love too how Azzarello and Lee Bermejo and their Lex Luthor Man of Steel thing, their great conversation that they had with Lex and Bruce Wayne going, he's an alien. How do we trust this guy? He's not from this world. And we get a hint of that in the movie. And also, Dan, am I right? Because forgive me, sometimes I read a shit ton of books in one period. You've got a great, you really delve into the Lex Clark relationship, don't you, in the Treasury edition?
I do, yes. Yeah. And I think it's always been a powerful relationship. And especially now that Lex is a part of Clark's youth again, where he hadn't been under Burns, it's fun to play with that aspect. So yes, I very much get into that.
Again, when you started writing the book back in the day, as we said, the Byrne era kind of jettisoned Supergirl, jettisoned Kandor, even Crypto.
Yeah.
All that stuff is back, and is that great for you, or how do you feel about it?
I think I don't know that everything has to go, but I don't know that everything necessarily has to come back either. I think there's a line with Superman, and I had said earlier, I like him as the last son of Krypton, and I say that because there has always been with Superman a certain sense of loneliness about him that I think really works well with the character. I think we see some aspects of that in this movie. We saw that in the first Donner movie, that at times there is this sense of loneliness to Superman. And so there is, like all things, moderation. If you take it too far one direction, you lose it. If you go too far the other direction, you can lose it as well. So I think it's just finding that right sense of balance.
I can't deny, again, when I was a 12-year-old kid, loving Kandor and everything, but I absolutely respect the idea that last son of Krypton. Did you watch Superman and Lois?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yes, I did. Very much so. Yeah.
That's cool. I'll remind everybody that might be going to Terrificon that Tyler Hoechlin and Elizabeth Turlock, both Superman and Lois. Also, Jordan, their son. All of them will be.
Okay, great.
Michael Kovitz, who was a great, different Lex Luthor. That was cool. Again, a different shade of Lex, but I kind of bought it. I thought it was kind of cool. And a more physical Lex.
Definitely a more physical Lex, a very threatening Lex at the same time, too. Yes. Yeah.
Jerry says, and it was part of your era, Matrix Supergirl is the best Supergirl, if you ask me. Okay.
And it's funny because everybody wanted to have Supergirl back somehow, some way, for a lot of different reasons. And part of it is just because of what she does represent to young women and young girls. So, we kind of got there the best way we could at that time.
There might be some sort of rights issue, because I'm surprised that on Max we're not seeing the Supergirl TV series, which I thought was incredibly great.
I don't know this, but I think sometimes the approach can be, if we have a movie coming out, we want everybody focused on that impression of the character, and that's where we're going to go with it. I have no idea if that's the case, but it wouldn't surprise me.
No, I hear you, man.
Yep.
All right, final question from Synchro Shadow. He wants to know if you have any sort of hope for a direction for Superman in the next film.
Well, I would say the direction is to continue what they already have. There's so much fun stuff there. And then, it gets into probably who is the next villain going to be? Is this where we finally get a Brainiac kind of approach that works, or something like that? So we shall see. That
is my hope, especially and again, I'll keep it spoiler free, but we all kind of know that Jor-El and Lara are in the movie. Mm-hmm. And an interesting kernel that is out there to explore further in new stories.
100%.
Whether in Supergirl or a next Superman movie. Yeah. So yes, I really hope that, and I'm so with you. God, when I read about the potential Superman 5 back in the day that they wanted to do Brainiac back then.
Yep.
So every time, the animated series, the way they handled Brainiac was excellent.
Oh, that was great. Yeah. Love that.
I'm with you, Dan. Well, again, along with Dan's Treasury edition of Superman, we're all anticipating Volume 3 of the History of the DC Universe that will be written by Mark Waid and drawn by Dan and Doug Mahnke. Mm-hmm. And Batman Second Night on the way. Mike Perkins and Dan returning to the early years of the Detective 27 era of the Batman, and great first story. So I'm excited for the next one. See Dan at San Diego Comic-Con, and then a couple weeks later at Mohegan Sun, and then Dan gets a break, well-deserved break.
I hope so.
Dan, always a pleasure, man. It means a lot that you come back, man. Seriously, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in Connecticut soon.
Very good. We'll see you there. Thank you as always.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Tomorrow afternoon, I'm recording with Alex Ross, and I'll present that probably Tuesday night and on video, and Wednesday for the audio. And Wednesday, if you don't mind, Dan, I'll go through my laundry list because it's a busy week here at Word Balloon. Wednesday, we're doing our book club, and I hope people will consider joining the book club. If you subscribe to Word Balloon via Patreon, patreon.com/wordballoon, you can join me and Brian Bendis. We're doing a monthly book club. Last month, we looked at the first volume of Criminal. This month, we're looking at the first volume of Saga, Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples, and talking to you all via Zoom, so you can participate if you're a patron of Word Balloon or you're part of Brian Bendis's subscription Discord. And that's always fun. We had Tom King with us. It sounds like Eric Pilecki, the comic book writer, at least will be another comic writer joining us. Thursday, Art from Franco, myself, Mitch from Terrificon, and others will all be discussing our spoiler review of Superman. And then Friday, I'll be talking, as I said, to the Neon Ichiban guys about their new digital comic platform. So all that coming up this week on Word Balloon. Until next time, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.